Hi, everyone. Noel Hacegaba, CEO of the Port of Long Beach, and I'm here at TPM26 in Long Beach with my good friend, John Gold of the National Retail Federation. John, it's so great to
Noel,
have you.
good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for making time for us.
Absolutely.
John, you represent hundreds of shipping companies, and I'm sure that you hear a lot and you get a lot of questions yourself. What are you hearing from your members at the National Retail Federation about everything that's unfolding regarding trade policy, tariffs, and now the situation that's unfolding in the Middle East?
Thanks, Noel. I think there are still a lot of questions about what's happening on
Yeah,
trade policy, on tariffs. Now add, the situation in the Middle East on top of all of that. It's a continuation of uncertainty. And I think as I've talked with a lot of folks here, not just my members but others, it seems like we've been living in these uncertain times for the past decade. Started with the first Trump administration with the China tariffs and the disruption that was there, and then we go into COVID, and then the Red Sea issues, and just everything else. It seems like for the past 10 years, it's been just the kind of disruption throughout the supply chain. Something else keeps happening, so it has been a challenge. I think for my members and others, they just want some certainty. Try and figure out what's happening, how to plan, because as they're all planning their supply chains, looking at 6, 9, 12 months down the road, not knowing what tariffs are going to be in place at any point in time is a challenge. Not knowing where you're supposed to be sourcing from is a challenge. A lot of folks took the message of get out of China, do the China +1, +2. Folks made those shifts, and then we had the Liberation Day tariffs that hit our other trading partners, where you had some countries that had higher tariffs than China. And companies are like, well, I made the move. Why am I being punished for that? So I think companies continue to deal with lots of uncertainty that's out there, and recognizing that it's not just on kind of imports of finished goods, but on the inputs to production. So even for those companies that want to shift to kind of the made in USA or bring manufacturing back here to the United States, you're still being hit with the tariffs, whether it's on the components or the machinery that you need. So again, I think for a lot of my members and others, just looking for that certainty coming, and we hope it comes soon. But they're all, they're planning and trying to figure out the best path forward.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that insight, John. We're hearing the same, and I know some were suggesting prior to the Supreme Court's decision that that might bring some clarity or certainty, but as we all learned, it just created more questions. And what I've been saying, which you just validated, is the only certainty is more uncertainty. So more to come on that. What about what's happening in the Middle East as things evolve there? How do you see that impacting the global supply chain?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know it's going to have an impact on vessels, as we saw with the Red Sea a few years ago. That's now popping up again as the Houthis are making threats and shutting down Suez. Obviously, having the impact in the Middle East and shutting down not just shipping, but air routes too are now being impacted, having to either not fly through or divert away from the situation in the Middle East. Again, here companies need to have been looking at this and the potential for more disruption. Obviously, the president has talked a lot about Iran since he was came into office. So folks hopefully have been planning, but when these things happen, and you don't know what's happening. It's tough to pivot at any moment in time. But I think folks have been looking at the situations, looking at other potential disruptions, and hopefully planning for it. And here again, it's got to work closely with your carriers and your suppliers and be able to shift when needed.
So in light of all the uncertainty and everything going on around us, around the world, what advice do you have for shippers and our partners across the supply chain?
I think the best advice that we continue to give folks is continue to work in partnership with your vendors across the board, your carriers, your brokers, your vendors. Make sure everybody's aligned and they know what your strategy is and can fit to pivot when you need to. I think the other thing too is don't overreact.
That's right.
We certainly saw that during COVID when everybody rushed everything in as much as possible. That caused other chaos and challenges. One of the things we continue to tell everybody is, don't react to what's on social media. Wait until you see official guidance coming out of the government before making any decisions.
Good advice.
But be ready, plan and prepare, and understand what the potential challenges could be in the future. But make sure you've got that coordinated communication throughout your organization so everybody knows what your plan is, but also make sure your partners know as well and know how to react.
Yeah, I love it. And that is the guidance that I give. I get that question quite a bit, and I say don't overreact, because what happens is when everyone overreacts, that's when you hit the crisis mode.
Absolutely.
And at the Port of Long Beach, John, and you'll like this as a football fan, we're moving to a football metaphor. And I'm saying that we are going to move to a hurry up offense, which means that we have to be efficient when we communicate. We have to be effective when we coordinate. And that's the way that we move cargo together more seamlessly. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Friends, thank you for joining us. You heard it directly from our good friend John Gold at the National Retailer Federation. He's got the pulse on the global supply chain. We're so fortunate to have his insights today. Thanks for joining us.